Okay folks, welcome back. We're going to show you how to do two of my most favorite rigs on late summer bass fishing. My two favorite rigs are the Carolina rig and the Texas rig. I'm going to show you how to make them, and I'll give you tips and tricks on how they work and what type of baits are good for the Texas rig and the Carolina rig. Now first we're going to show you how to do the Texas rig, which is one of the most common rigs and one of the most effective rigs. You will need a bullet weight, like a 3/4 ounces of a weight. So this is about 3/4 of an ounce. You want to use this. You could use this too if you need to, if the current's really high in the water. If you're fishing a river, you can use a whole ounce weight if you need to. But what you want to do is you want to feed the line through the top of the bullet weight. You want a bullet weight. You could either use a tungsten weight or a lead weight like this one. Once you feed that through the line through the bullet weight, you want to tie the hook off right here. Once you tie the hook off, you could use any type of knot you want. You could use a polymer knot. I'm going to show you how to make the trilene knot. What you do is you put the line through the hook like that, and then you run the line through the hook again like so. And this is a 20-pound test we're using here, so this is to make the leader to show you as a demonstration on how to do it. You want a loop, you want 2 loops in the knot like that. You want to run it just a few times, like 6 times like that. Run the tag into the line like so through the both loops, and then pull it tight. Once you pull it tight, it's one of the best knots there is to fish with. There you go. That, once you tighten it down, there is your Texas rig. That is a traditional Texas rig. Now, the type of baits you want to use on a Texas rig are like fluke baits. You could use crawdad baits if you want on the Texas rig. You could use pearly tail worms. You could use ribbon tail worms. You could use a lizard. Pretty much any bait that you think you can imagine you could put on here. You could put stick baits on here, like weighted type of worms, whatever you really want to use. It's a really effective flip and pitching technique to get under docks and through heavy cover and stuff like that. Now we're going to be doing the Carolina rig. You still will need the worm hook. You may want to use a thicker worm hook, but a medium-sized worm hook will be fine. It's got a little bend right here at the top, and or you could use a really thick trocar hook if you're wanting to make that Texas rig work for you better. But for a Carolina rig, you only need a base worm hook, like an eagle claw or owner. There's Mustad. You can basically find whatever company of hooks that you like to use that make these style of worm hooks. You will either need a 3/4 of an ounce bullet weight or a full ounce weight. Now, if you're going to go into heavy current in your fishing river systems, you may want to use the full ounce weight for the Carolina rig setup. But if you're just fishing ponds and lakes that don't have a lot of current, the 3/4 ounce weight will be good for you. Now first, you want to make a leader. Now we got our line sitting right here. You want about that much line as your leader, about 1 foot to 2 foot as your leader. Now, same as the last time we tied on, we're going to tie on the trilene knot right here. You just want to put the tag in the line in there first, and then you want to run that line through there again, through the top of the hook like this, and you want to try to get some more line out of there. You want as much line as you can to do this knot. It's a rock solid knot. It's hard to get wrong. Just run it around itself a few times like this, and once you do that, you run the tag into the line down through both loops like so, and cinch it down tight. Hold that bottom tag line down like so, and pull it tight, and it should be good to go. It's money. It ain't gonna go nowhere now. Now this little extra piece of tagline for the leader, you may want to chop that off with like maybe a pair of fingernail clippers or a, you know, because we're using 20-pound tests. You want to use 20 to 25-pound tests with the leader line with this rig, because you're going to be using a braid as a backup. And you want, next you'll need a barrel swivel like this, or maybe a bigger one. You want to tie that barrel swivel off. You want to tie that barrel swivel off like this through the one of the holes of the barrel swivel. You could do any knot. You could do an improved cinch knot. You could do a clinch knot if that was. You could do an improved cinch knot. You could do a trilene knot. You could do a polymer knot. Whatever knot that you're comfortable with using, you go ahead and do that. But we're gonna use the trilene knot with the double loop like I showed you earlier. Run it a few times. It's a rock solid knot, and then you run the tag into the line through the hole. And this is pretty much a dynamite knot. You can't really break it or get it wrong like that. You see? Okay, we got the leader done. It's going to be a pretty long leader with the hook, like I said, at the bottom. You want a long leader because when you're dragging this bait on the bottom, it's going to float up. The bait's going to float up and then drop, and then you're going to pull it and then drag it on the bottom, and it's going to pull up and float up to the top and drop. Now, after you get this done, you will need some glass beads. Now, you can get an assortment of glass beads, but what you really want is the biggest glass bead in the assortment of glass beads. A lot of companies make these. You can use, they also make this like little rattle bead as well that's made out of metal. It has a little rattle in it. But I kind of stick to glass beads. Find the biggest one in the bag. Okay, we got the desired bead that we're looking for here, which is the biggest bead in the bag. Also, the bead will also protect the knot on the barrel swivel as well when you're dragging it along the bottom, where the weight's not going to tear it up so bad. Now, once we got that, we need another piece of line just as a demonstration to tie off. Now, what you want to do first is put your weight, depending on which kind of fishing conditions you're in. Like I said, if you're fishing a river with the Carolina rig, you want to use the full ounce weight. I like to use the bullet weight because it's a lot more aerodynamic, and it's 3/4 of an ounce, and you don't really need that much weight. And what you want to do, this is your main line that goes to your reel. You want to push it through the bullet weight, and then add your bead to this to the weight underneath it. So you want it to kind of go like this. As you can see, the weight goes on top of the glass bead. You want to use a glass bead. Don't buy no plastic beads. Plastic beads do not work for this type of fishing setup. Then you want to tie your main line to your barrel swivel, and you could do any type of knot you like. I'm going to do the trilene knot again. Just basically fold it over a few times. Take the tag into the line, put it through both loops of the line, and then hold on to the tag end and pull it tight. And there you go. It's totally set up now. And what this does is when you're dragging this through the water, it makes a clicking noise. It bounces off of the bead. And make sure when you're casting this, you don't want to cast it too hard because this is a glass bead. And if you cast it too hard, it's possible that you could break the bead. But the glass bead makes enough noise to where, as you can hear, when you're dragging this on the bottom and pulling your bait, it makes a clicking noise which drives the fish to the bait when it floats up with the hook. When you drag it, the bait floats up and then sinks back to the bottom, which gives the fish time to whack it, and then you can set the hook. Okay, that's basically the Carolina rig setup right there for you folks. Okay, now we're going to show you the type of baits that I like, and I think a lot of professional fishermen use for the Carolina rig. the most, which is, I think, the best bait. Honestly, the two best bait I've had a lot of luck with are the lizards, either in whatever color you want to use. This one has a paddle tail on the lizard. You could either get them in watermelon, pumpkin seed, but basically that's the colorization of most of the salamanders in most bodies of water are watermelon, pumpkin seed. I've never seen them any other color. This is a dynamite bait with the as a trailer for the Carolina rig. Any type of salamander in any color will work for this. And the second bait that I like to use is basically any curly tail worm, or they call them curly tail worms, or you don't want to use a ringtail worm. You want to use a curly tail worm for this setup. I'm just showing you what I got. Any type of curly tail worm from any company will work for this. You could use even longer tailed worms for bigger bass. This is just basically the type of worm you want to use for the Carolina rig. This is a dynamite worm to catch these bass with. Honestly, I would rather use a watermelon pumpkin seed worm color than the purple and black. But the purple and black is pretty good too. It depends on what time of year you're fishing the Carolina rig with. But you know, those are my two favorite baits: is the curly tail worm and the salamander bait are like the two best baits to use with the Carolina rig. And now I'm going to show you how to use it as a demonstration on how to cast the basically cast and the retrieval methods that will work for you using the Carolina rig setup. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of tips and tricks and techniques on how to use the Carolina rig effectively for bank fishing, or if you're in a boat. Now, the first thing you want to notice is you want to use a bait caster for this type of setup. Any type of bait caster will work. It doesn't matter what gear ratio it is in. But the one main thing is your main line, you want to use 50-pound braid to 80-pound braid for this technique, because you're using a 20-pound test monofilament leader with the Carolina rig to fish with your trailer baits. Because this will stretch, but it'll also give you enough thickness in the line to where it's not going to pop off and break every time, and also give you enough it'll give you enough striking capability to set the hook in deep with the braid, and give you a little bit of sensitivity and durability over a main monofilament or fluorocarbon line for this setup. Also, when you're bank fishing with a Carolina rig, if you're bank fishing, you want to be able to walk around the pond or lake as much as you can, or as far as you can go. You want to fish as many spots as you can with the Carolina rig. You want to throw it in different directions in the spot you're fishing in. If you don't get a hit with it right off the bat, you want to move to another area of the lake and then try your luck over there. Now, when you first cast this lure out, if you're bank fishing, you want to cast it as far away from you as you can, out in the middle of the lake, as deep and as far as you want to go off the ledge. The technique is, when you do that, is you want to point the rod tip a little bit to the ground like this and reel it in slow, and you just want to pull the bait through the water. Really slow, pull it through the water and just reel it, pull it, let the bait sink a second, and then reel it in and just drag it along the bottom. Just reel it and drag it. You can't really get it wrong. You just drag the bait, reel it really slow. Make sure your drag is extremely tight. This is where that 50-pound, 80-pound braid comes in handy, where you can, once you set the hook, it'll make it to where you can horse the fish in without losing the fish. That's why you can't really use monofilament or fluorocarbon for this technique, because with this braid it'll make it to where you can horse the fish in on a tighter drag setting, so the fish can't get away. Once you do that, now there's a technique to setting the hook with a Carolina rig. Once you get a hit with the Carolina rig, you want to set the hook sideways like this, and then pull your rod tip up and start cranking the fish in. If you try to set the hook like a traditional Texas rig, you're going to lose the fish. You want to keep that reel in motion while you're dragging. As soon as you get a hit, you want to pull the bait off to the side. You want to pull your rod tip off to the side as a hook set, and then bring your rod tip up and start cranking the fish in, and that way you will never lose any bass that you set the hook on with a Carolina rig. Now, a Texas rig is easy to use. It's the same concept, except you can cast it, you can flip it and pitch it into cover and brush. You know, you just want to use your rod tip to kind of, you know, just any type of bait you're using to drag it along the bottom. You know, you just want to drag it and twitch it a little bit off the bottom. As soon as you can get a hit, you can set the hook any which way you want to. You don't need to pull it off to the side like this, like you do with a Carolina rig. You can set the hook traditionally if you want. I think the Texas rig is a little bit more versatile in the fact that you could use pretty much any type of plastic bait, where with the Carolina rig you just want to use a salamander or a curly tail worm, which is really the two rock solid baits that I think work really well with the Carolina rig. Well folks, if you think these tips and tricks have helped you out with the Carolina rig and the Texas rig, leave me a comment down below and tell me your thoughts on this video. If you like it, please leave a share, like, and comment, and subscribe. This has been your old pal Hondo from Hillbilly Tactical. Peace out, YouTube.